This is Joanna Friesner. I am the Executive Director of the North American Arabidopsis Steering Committee, and it's my pleasure to be joined today by Siobhan Brady and Terry Long. And we are three of the members of the NAASC Inclusivity Scholars Program. And we wanted to talk a little bit today about why we are developing the programs that we are in support of community members in plant science. Terry, would you like to say who you are?
Yeah, so Terry Long, I'm an associate professor in the Department of Plant Microbial Biology, and I've known Joanna and Siobhan for many years, and I'm excited to be able to talk a little bit about our work in this arena.
And my name is Siobhan Brady, and I am a professor at UC Davis in the Department of Plant Biology and the Genome Center, and I count myself lucky to have known both Terry and Joanna for many years, and also to have worked with them on the program that we're about to tell you about.
Great. Well, let's just jump. Terry, let's start with you. Could you describe some personal or professional challenges that you've faced in your career in plant biology that's related to your racial or ethnic identities?
I think the biggest problem that I have struggled with and continue to struggle with to some extent today is the feeling of isolation. Is the feeling that I'm constantly the only person, sometimes not only the only person of color, but the only Black person in the room. When it comes to faculty meetings or just, when I teach my class, it's very disconcerting to constantly feel like you are the only one. And because I'm the only one, it makes me sometimes question, what am I doing here? Do I deserve to be here? Am I talented enough to be here? So constantly feeling that sense of imposter syndrome that I thought I would be over by this stage of my career, but no, it's something that I still struggle with. And I think a lot of other people in my position and younger students struggle with the same thing.
And so maybe then I would just go on to add about instances where colleagues or students, where we've seen them struggling with similar issues and concerns. So in addition to being usually the only or very, very small number of people in the room with their particular identity, it's also being treated dismissively by often many older and respected colleagues, sometimes even being mistaken for, being a server in a particular party. And then the flip side of that is also often feeling this overwhelming, sometimes, double, triple, quadruple of the magnitude of anxiety because that particular colleague or student feels that if they make the wrong decision, that it's going to reflect poorly upon all other scientists of their ethnicity or identity.
Absolutely. And then when you do achieve something, wondering if that achievement is because you are Black, if you do achieve something, wondering if other people think you only achieve something because you are Black. So even when you do, even when you are successful, constantly question, the foundation of that is still kind of shaky.
Terry and I have both been involved in conversations where we've heard colleagues say, well, I'm pretty sure that person got that just because they are.
Absolutely. I've had that
American.
Times. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So it's clear that there's a lot of hidden sort of challenges, already going through graduate school or postdocs or trying to get a faculty position. Those are all really hard things. But because of your racial or ethnic identities or what you've observed in your students or maybe colleagues, there's a whole weight of additional things that a lot of people maybe don't even have to think about.
It's absolutely. And that weight can be crushing, especially when you have that, like you said, the additional weight of just being in academia. Sometimes you have familial commitments and stuff that other people may not have. So it's something to think about when you approach students that don't look like you. It's something you should keep in mind that, people are dealing with different things, especially right now.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Mm-hmm. And one of the other things is you both happen to be women and both happen to be mothers. And so that's an additional hat and that never comes off, honestly. Even as a scientist, you're always the parent, but I think mothers in particular have huge additional roles in plant sciences, in any field for that matter.
Yeah. No, yeah, the gender gap has also been a big struggle as well, especially right now with COVID, because we still do the majority of the the child care and the caring for the home And so dealing with that and dealing with the additional issues that it comes with being Black in America right now. And plus, if you don't know, I've had graduate students that have had familial issues and dealing with things with, some of my graduate students have been parents. So it's a lot right now. And it's been a lot, but now it's even more.
So just to be more clear, right, we're talking about familial responsibilities. We're talking about COVID really having a disproportionate effect upon African Americans and other underrepresented communities in terms of disparities in healthcare.
So do you see any of these challenges to be specific to plant biology in the US, for example, or are they challenges maybe in science in general? And how are we trying to address some of these challenges with our plant science community members through our initiatives?
I think some of them can be specific to plant sciences because there's so few of us, so few Black people in plant sciences and few people of color, that I do think that sense of isolation is even more exacerbated in our community. And then when you are a young person going into the field and you see very few people who look like you, that's even more demotivating. So I think that some of these challenges are specific to us. And also, sometimes Black students and students of color are driven away from plant sciences because they may not see it as relevant, or they may see that, the pay it just isn't worth it. I should just go into medicine. So I think that we really are charged with trying to show younger people, why go into a career like this? What's the advantages? What are the disadvantages? How much, how we support one another? I think that's the reasons that we developed some of the programs that we've been developing, is to try to develop networking opportunities and to build cohorts that will last a person throughout their entire career, which I've been able to take.
Well, let me follow up with what Terry was saying, which I was realizing as she was saying it. It's another big burden for women of color, plant scientists of color, to realize that not only are you one of the only people in the room, but you're also thinking, I want to make a future and a present that is welcoming for students that look like me, because I am trying actively to engage people so they don't leave the field. So not only are you spending time trying to survive yourself, but you're also trying to make way for others that come behind you. And so that's so in that sense, what the three of us have been working on for a number of years is to develop and support cohorts so that we don't all have to try to make it on our own. So Siobhan, what in your career, what is the value that you see in supporting cohorts of plant scientists, especially women and scientists of color?
And so one of our ideas to focus on trying to develop cohorts of underrepresented ethnicities and identities in the sciences, and specifically in plant biology, is because Terry and I were both really, really lucky in our postdocs to have this really strong group of supportive colleagues and friends with whom you could be honest about any particular thing that you're faced with at that particular moment. And just having that unconditional support led us both to be more successful in our careers. And so we had this particular sense of belonging within our particular postdoc group. And then we collectively started trying to develop more structured programs to bring together cohorts of plant biologists who are minoritized in our particular field of plant biology. And so this all started off with some efforts that we had first in British Columbia in
2014,
where we pulled together a one day, and then it also extended through other days, program trying to bring in, as NSF defined them at the time, underrepresented minorities at a variety of different career levels within Arabidopsis research, or trying to have both structured as well as unstructured moments for that group of scientists at different levels to really learn who these other members were, and to try to facilitate some long-lasting relationships that could help sustain them.
And what we were also trying to do was create safe spaces for them to be able to share experiences, both good and bad. So creating safe spaces, but also connecting them with some of the older, more established leaders in the field, so they could begin to develop their network or continue to expand their network. Because I think having people recognize your name when your application comes across their desk, or when they see your proposal come across their desk, if they recognize your name, I think that things would generally go better for your application and so on and so forth. So I think networking, exposing students to leaders in the field, and creating safe spaces was one of the two of the things that I really wanted to see developed into more structured programming.
Yeah, Terry, you bring up a really good point, and is something that I realized during my years of trying to organize the conference that I do, is that if you think about how scientists, if they're going to run a seminar, pretty frequently what we do is we sit in a room with our colleagues and we say, hey, who do you know who works in microbe interactions and herbivore or whatever, or who do you know that works on hormone signaling? And the people that you tend to know are the people that were already in your established networks, whether that's the people you went to grad school with, faculty members that you know, even could be co-editors on a journal. And so we rapidly realized that we were really tapping into kind of the same small network. And so I think that a really valuable thing that we're trying to do is to expand our networks. And so that's one of our goals with a Diversify Plant Sci database, just to get more names out there. And that also lets people know there are others like them that are out there. And so I think these plans of sort of connecting people and developing cohorts and showing up for opportunities, I just really think that they're helpful, and I hope that we'll have many more conversations in the future and more input from members of these cohorts to really guide us in coming up with new ideas and new approaches that will help people thrive in plant science.
So yeah, I think Diversify Plant Sci, which is basically just a list of contact information of people from diverse backgrounds with different identities, people who are allies. I think this list has been one of the most important tools in our field right now, because sometimes when you look at, I need a speaker for X, Y, and Z, and you can go to this list and you can find on it, you can find people that you normally wouldn't be able to find. I think social media has been a huge player in really just increasing our network and strengthening our programs. So that's Diversify Plant Sci, Diversify Plant Pub. I think social networking has been really important in Twitter advertising for things like our Inclusivity Scholars Program, the travel used to be called the Underrepresented Minority Travel Award. So I think that my hope is that our programs will continue to grow with social media and some of the other efforts that we're doing, like Changing Climates and Cultures website that's being developed with Plantaid. So I think that the future looks bright for these sorts of efforts.
So the one thing that I would add is that we've been involved in this program now for officially, probably the last 6 years. And one of the most fantastic things is to, first of all, to see cohort members over the years continue to be involved at a variety of levels within our community, even if they end up going different routes than academia. And then the second, probably one of the most overwhelming things that I've experienced with respect to this program is seeing all the different activities that are being implemented and developed, not just within the Arabidopsis community, but within the larger plant biology community. And so my real hope is that we're all working together to really change who is in the room and who gets to be present, and who's accepted, who's respected, and whose voice is listened to.
Absolutely. I think, and I would just like to give a shout out to, first, I think the most important thing is all of the tireless effort that individuals like you two we've been working for years. But of course, I also want to really thank the U.S. National Science Foundation for being willing, not even being willing, just making diversity and inclusion it has been a priority in their funding schemes for, I don't know, at least decades. Because we know budgets are moral documents, and you can have all the best intention in the world, but if there aren't funding or resources behind it, they're not going to, and we still don't have enough funding or resources, honestly, but certainly we rely heavily on the National Science Foundation for giving us the seed money to bring people together. And so I have really appreciated their support. And I agree, Siobhan, that in the plant science community now, there's a lot more recognition of the value of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think social issues have really pushed it more to the forefront. And so I think this is becoming a better time for everyone to work together.
So in particular, I want to acknowledge the RCN, which Siobhan, and Joanna were the PIs on, the Research Coordination Network that was funded by NSF, that really kind of helped us develop structure within the last 5 to 6 years, right?
Yeah.
For, diversity and inclusion programs related to NAASC.
And then one addition to that, which is that the National Science Foundation really tries to encourage its investigators to assess frequently and consistently. And another factor that I've appreciated over this last year is the opportunity for us to be able to go back and to revisit our program and areas that we needed to work on, and areas that worked particularly well as the opportunity to have feedback from the cohort members over the last years. And I think there's always ways that we can improve and that we can change. And just really exciting to be part of such an awesome group of people who are really focused on a similar objective and mission.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. That was a great introduction to our efforts. And there's a lot more that you can find on the Plante website and also the NAASC website. And we're getting close to closing out this particular RCN that we've been working under for the last 5 years, a little over 5 years. And we are planning our next set of activities that we will be seeking funding for. And so we hope that we will see many of you online at the ICAR 2021, which is now a virtual conference. And stay tuned because we expect to have more activities during ICAR for members of the Inclusivity Scholars Program, as well as early career researchers. And there's lots of funding available to join the conference. And we hope we will meet you and you will be part of our cohort.